going to talk about the Indiana Parenting Institute, you and COVID. But before we do that, I want to remind our listeners that the views expressed by the hosts and callers of this show are not necessarily the views of WLTH Radio Management, owner, and sponsor. And with that, good morning. How you
It
doing,
is
lovely lady?
so great to see you.
It
Thank
is
you.
awesome to see you as well.
Thank you for thinking of me, and you look fab, and all is well.
All is well.
This is an interesting new normal, isn't it? I'm finally, after a month of it, starting to get some adjustment, but I think trying to not fight it and learning how to work with it is a challenge in and of itself, but
And I can appreciate that you say that because we're all resistant to change, and this has been a massive, like culture shock, baptism by fire,
okay.
and change in your life. You know? It's like whatever you're doing, stop it immediately.
Right, exactly, exactly.
And yeah, so, but the Indiana Parenting Institute, tell our listeners what the Indiana Parenting Institute does.
The Indiana Parenting Institute is really about helping families stay together, get along together. You know, we're all a bunch of individuals in a household, right, in one place, and really trying to find that point of meshing, you know, for lack of a better word. And so we work with parents who we call the center of influence in that home, meaning that you are the driver, we'll put it that way, that you determine direction, you determine environment, and we help you to kind of garner control of that, especially if you didn't even realize that you had that type of influence within the home. And so once we do that, then it allows a parent to see their influence in the outcomes from their kids' behaviors, school work, or those kind of things, so that it's not so much a hodgepodge and you have to react and deal with everything as it comes, but you've got some ability to flex that, to flex the way things go, you know, that to direct it somewhat. And so that's what we try to enlighten our parents about. You know, if a family comes to us and either someone has told them there's a lack of order and control in that environment, or they feel it, they know that there's a place to come to help them find that stability and to find that means of having that type of influence.
It's a balance.
Right.
We have to get balance within a household, or everything is chaotic.
Right. I think we all need to understand where our area of I don't want to say control, because people think of that kind of dictatorial control, but what I'm really meaning is that you have an opportunity to have some input into how things operate, you know, and a lot of times we feel like we're reacting to things. So
you take charge of the whole situation. And you're absolutely right, because now everybody feels that things are all helter-skelter,
right,
willy-nilly. What do I do? And even after a while of being quarantined in with your family, when we're talking social distance, that's a lot.
Right.
It's a lot to absorb.
Right. And I just think that, first of all, it's change. And we have to understand that change is difficult for every human being on the planet, especially sudden, unexpected change. So do not feel bad. Do not feel like a failure if it's not smoothing out as quickly and as easily as you think it should. I think everyone's dealing with the same problem. Some people have less challenges that they were already dealing with that have now been compounded, but it doesn't mean that you are no worse or no less than anyone else going through this sudden, horrific, putting the brakes on. I mean, imagine going 90 miles an hour and somebody putting the brakes on the car and then shifting you quickly into another direction. I mean, if you don't have a heart attack in the midst of all that, then you have to, you know, come back down and find your new balance or homeostasis, you know. And so don't feel bad that you're going through that. You're so not alone. I mean, even those of us that are here to help folks are going through the very same thing. So it's really a matter of, once you understand that this is completely normal, and then and because it's completely normal, if you're struggling, having some issues dealing with it, please reach out. I mean, I reach out because there's elements that I'm just like, I don't even know how to deal with this, right, you know? And so I don't know where the fallacy or the bald-faced lie is really what I want to call it, that if you need help, that you're weak or you're less than, because we all need help. There's only so much that we know. And so I always tell people, it says nothing about you negative when you ask for assistance or ask questions. This shows everything positive, because it shows that you know that you need to know more. You need to have that you're actually making that effort to improve your situation. So I just wanted to get that out the way, because I cannot tell you how many people are trying to figure this stuff out on their own and don't, because none of us know how to figure this out on our own.
Big thing in right dab, smack dab in the middle that people are using to solve their problems and the issues. Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you see so much stuff out on Facebook, and then you look at that, and I don't know if it's a reaction or someone just says something and then people start reacting to it, and that's totally not the way to go. Your life is out there on Facebook, and then other people are reacting to what you're saying, and it's not mending. It's not a good mender.
Facebook is an interesting neighbor. Do you know? I mean, we all got that crazy relative or that crazy neighbor down the street. You know, you kind of know how to categorize them, you know, when you all have to come together. We haven't quite figured out how to categorize Facebook, because the one element of Facebook that I realize is that I would consider dangerous, and that's just me, is the fact that it's very good, it's very malleable, it's very adaptable. It can change forms in a heartbeat, you know. So at one minute you're looking at it and going, this thing is crazy, and the next minute you find yourself agreeing with it, and you're like, whoa. So then, like, how do I balance these two? Because yeah, you're going to hear some stuff that rings true or rings right to you, and you're going to hear some stuff that rings crazy. But how am I supposed to take this medium that so easily throws both at me and makes them both seem factual? You know, and so that I rarely did Facebook prior to this situation, prior to COVID, and just watching that whole world, it's like a new TV show for me, and just understanding how it works, the role that it plays in people's lives, and how to get the best out of it. And I think that that's a lot of the conversation that you see around Facebook by the pundits, is how to get the best out of Facebook. And right now what I'm seeing is that unfortunately it really relies a lot on the people that are utilizing it. So how do we empower them to make the best use out of it? Because you cannot force people how to use it, but you can give them options and let them choose those accordingly. And right now there aren't even options for how to mesh it into your life. And so I would really like to see something along those lines, because then people can know how to opinionate versus to reach out and get real information that can help them.
Yeah, because you notice we went from the Oprahs and the Dr. Phils and all of those people of the world, and now Ricky Lake and all of them, and now we've got this medium that we put out there that everybody is living their life, or they figure if you put it on Facebook, it has to be true.
Right. I have a friend of mine who says, I've never seen so many couch virologists in my life. Virologists meaning people who have studied about viruses and everything about them. So what I utilize Facebook for, and what I would recommend, is just, it's an opportunity to see what the thoughts are out there about it. If I really need to know more information, I go to anything that is deemed reputable. So like a science newsletter, or a science magazine, or a science log, or something that I know will have probably more accurate information than, say, a Facebook, but also to see what the climate is. What Facebook does is it gives you the climate. Are people okay with this, or are people hating it, or are people about to rebel against it? That's the kind of stuff that Facebook is really good about. It's not really so much about facts, but it lets you know where people are so that you can know what to get to them. You know, so a lot of times when I do reply, I know you're a Facebook friend and you probably see the posts that I do, but a lot of the replies that I do are really about helping people to pull back from the emotional responses that Facebook is so good at making you have, and deciding, if that gives me such an emotional reaction, let me go out there and look for other information, and even purposely look for contrary information to the opinion that you've got, so that you really get a full picture. So if somebody says this is awful, read what somebody's saying. Read what somebody is saying who says it's okay. You know, because you're going to get different points from each one, and then you can make a much more informed decision than just sticking to that one thing that got you emotionally riled up or emotionally afraid out of your mind or whatever. I just think that we haven't really been taught how to handle the excessive amount of information that we get. And information doesn't mean factual. And that's the other thing that we haven't learned yet, is that information is just people spouting something, whether it's facts, opinions, bald-faced lies. It's just a matter of you then taking all of those ingredients and seeing what dish you can make from them.
Absolutely. And so for me, it takes, in like my granddaughter, I mean, there was this young lady who, I mean, she had a whole family involved, and they were talking about how the world was ending and the sun was going to happen. And then they had went back, and I don't even know where they manufactured all this stuff, and they brought her into all these facts like that. And she was like really fearful of what was about to happen someday at midnight and all of these kinds of things here. And it actually puts a lot of fear in people.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing that it does is it's causing the scene to rip on personal interaction with family members. Because, family members even divide because of an opinion out on Facebook.
Right.
Yes.
So, but that happens regardless of a Facebook. Yeah. I mean, I can tell you all kinds of interesting family division stories that have gone on in our family, and then people come back together. It's this whole cycle of this thing, right? I just think that emotions are probably one of our greatest assets and probably one of our biggest stumbling blocks. Do you understand? Because emotions are what you need to give you that energy and that drive to accomplish something. Without them, if I say I want to accomplish something and don't have that emotional drive behind it, it might get done, it might not, right? But so you need those emotions to give you that energy. But what happens then when those emotions are negative and are directed towards something unhealthy, it becomes a whole different dynamic. So what I would love to see happen, and one of the things that we really work with our parents on, is to have that emotional response, but then don't make your decisions from that. So you can blow up at your kid or your significant other, where you're just going, how could you do something like that? That's what I mean by blow up. Don't go crazy. But then let the child know that I have to process this. And then we're going to discuss what the consequence of this action. I just, my mom, who is the CEO of Indiana Parenting Institute, Laura Wynn, and I were working on a document about punishment and how the word needs to be discipline and not punishment. And so I looked up something about punishment, and I just, if you'd let me share it with you.
Okay, yes.
Many parents think discipline means punishment for a child's unacceptable behavior, mostly by spanking or hitting, right? But discipline is more about changing undesirable, meaning potentially harmful behaviors, than it is about a penalty or suffering for an offense or a wrongdoing. So basically, we think when a child is misbehaving that we have to punish that behavior, which is make the child suffer for that wrongdoing, right? Which is punishment. So you have to understand that punishment you don't want to make a child suffer for a mistake that they made. You want to help them change that behavior so that they won't make another mistake. So as such, there are many options at one's disposal to affect change or to make change happen in another without exposing them to punishment. For example, you can start to see the child's undesirable behaviors, or when they act up is what is the colloquial term for it, as mistakes. See all of them. Even when I mess up, it's a mistake, because what I said is mistakes, by the way, are solely a deviance from a directed, expected, or desired performance. So if I was expecting this from something and I didn't get that, a mistake was made because it didn't give me the outcome. So if I look at it as mistakes, thank goodness, still contextually, making a mistake is not a bad thing. Misbehaving is a really bad thing, and thus the thought that we need to punish that. But instead, if I realize that my kid's misbehavior was that he misinterpreted, or even if he intentionally did not do what I was supposed to do, it's still a mistake because there's a reasoning mistake there. For some reason, he thought that what I told him not to do was the best thing for him, So let me just read on. So where things run the risk of moving from changing behaviors to punishment is when motive is taken under consideration. The party on the receiving end of the mistake usually perceives a motive behind the mistake, which then triggers an emotional response, and it is this response that dictates the receiver's subsequent actions. For example, an empathetic emotional response usually leads to assistance with changing that behavior. So if I see that the person doesn't get what they're doing, I want to help them to make a better choice next time, or yes, I guess it's a choice because better choice of behavior next time, right? An offended emotional response. So if that mistake offends me, usually leads to having the offender suffer for the mistake, right?
Okay.
So when you see your parent, when you see a family member pissing you, can I say that? when you see a family member upsetting you, or offending you, or you see a child doing something that is offensive to you,
Okay.
allow yourself to let the child know that you don't like that behavior, but do not make any important decisions. Say, I have to process. I'm about to go process this. Because I remember when I was a kid, my mom would say that. I'd be like, oh no, what's coming, right? Because I'd rather her react than process. Not that I would get a worse spanking, but the impact she would engage me in the impact of the consequence of my action, and it always felt worse. Do you get what I'm saying?
Okay, I got you.
Okay, so changing it from punishment to mistake and what should be the consequence of this mistake, I think gets you a lot further than the whole punishment thing. Because at the end of the day, what I'm actually doing is saying that my child needs to suffer for something that 9 times out of 10 they didn't even realize was what they shouldn't be doing.
Okay. Okay.
Sometimes it is, but you want to change that tendency to not to realize that when I as your parent, who is your protector, who loves you and who is here to care for you, says don't do it, there's probably a really good reason. Before you decide that you're not going to do it, ask me what my reason is for making you do that.
Okay, first of all, you got to get past. You got to count to 10,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe even 100,
Mm-hmm.
to get past and have that anger mode as to like, oh yeah, you're
Mm-hmm.
ready.
That's what I'm saying. I got to go process this.
Right.
I ain't gonna deal. We ain't gonna deal with this right now. I'm just gonna let you know I'm PO'd. But I'm coming back and we gonna deal with this.
Okay.
I'm telling you that is
But
scary.
that's not the initial reaction.
Right.
So you got to figure out, number one, how are we going to get the parents to that point where they can say, I have to process what you're doing and come back later on for your punishment.
And that is hard, especially under this particular circumstance, right? Because you're living on planet Pluto right now, where you're used to the way things are going on Earth, and people are telling you to change everything.
Right.
But maybe that's a good thing too, because now that we have to change everything that we're used to, that's just another thing to add on to the changes, right? So maybe it's not so bad.
So we're talking about a long process. I'm going to tell you that, because some people have this behavior that has gone from generation to generation, and now you're talking about rewind here and be able to calmly say, or whether you say it calmly or whatever, that I'm gonna come back later on. We're gonna deal with this later. Okay.
I mean, I yell at him, but I'd still say we're gonna deal with what the consequence of this is later, because there's a consequence to everything you do.
Inflict the punishment, then it's better to wait until later.
Because you never want to make. How many times have you reacted emotionally to what your child did and later regretted it?
Oh, many times.
If you take that pause for the cause so that you can get off the emotional pedestal and start to think logically, it is literally physically impossible for you to think logically when you're emotionally agitated.
Oh yeah.
It is physically impossible. No, impossible. Science has proven this. So why would you try and make an important decision that may be in your child's memory till they drop dead?
Because it's a learned behavior.
Right.
And you have to help unlearn.
Right.
You gotta call.
Okay.
You don't put it in. You don't have to put the headphones on, but if you push the button up enough where you can hear the conversation, you don't have to pick them up. Although they have been sterilized, you can't do it.
Okay. I was like, which one? I have to figure out which one is.
Oh, you want to go ahead?
So you have to figure out which one it is.
Go ahead, caller. Good morning, Miss Nadine. How are you? I don't know, Miss Nadine, but right now we're on a conversation where we talk about this.
I can hear it from there though. I can't hear it in any of them. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Wow. Okay, thank you so much for your call. Hey, now
It was unplugged.
sorry about that.
No, that's okay. That was hilarious.
But as we continue on with the conversation, we're talking about learned behavior and actually being able to come back, because now so many parents are in the home, or the children are home out of school. And can you imagine the parents that are actually, they tell you that they're going crazy, they can't do this, they can't stay, I can't take this child, I can't do this, out of control.
One of the
Although
things,
you said you didn't want to use the out of control, but it is out of control.
I think that maybe okay, I have to let you guys in on something, because Natalie and I on occasion do talk offline. And so one of the conversations that we have were about family meetings. So I know she's steering me in this direction, because she told me that we were going to have a good conversation about this one. So, but I just think that families, this may be a good time for families to start thinking about coming together in what we call the family meeting at Indiana Parenting Institute, and to organize how things are going to operate. Because it's not, the parents are the center of influence, but there are other personalities that live in that house too. And so I'm thinking that it's important, especially during an emergency or during a war with an invisible enemy, as people are calling this, because that's exactly what it feels like, where you have to have strategy. You have to find yourselves working in harmony so that you are safe. Right? And so I think it's important as a family to come together Monday, let's say Monday over Cheerios, and say that this is the plan. Let's come up with a plan for us to operate through this war, right? And so this is Bobby's role, this is Lakeisha's role, this is Johnny's role, so this is mom's role, this is dad's role, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So that everybody kind of knows what their area is, and that you work through this as a family, right? And let, as that center of influence, let your kids know that we have to do this, or we may not make it through this, right? In terms of mentally, right? That will like drive each other crazy. So we want to make sure that the emotion, the stress in this house doesn't make the walls explode, kind of a thing. So what can we do? What responsibilities can everybody have? These are all the responsibilities. What are the responsibilities? Who wants this responsibility? Who wants this responsibility? And can we rely on everyone to do their thing? You have to start that as a parent.
So when you talk about responsibilities, let's talk about what those responsibilities are. Is it something that you're doing in the household duty? Or the first thing is simple as put the cell phones down, okay? Or turn off all the equipment, and now mom and dad, if it's a 2-parent household, or even it's a single parent household, mom is around more visible now because she's not working, or dad, they're not working, and the children are all home. So it's like, how do you do that? Because normally sometimes things didn't get done in the household, chores didn't get done because everybody waited a while, somebody was gone, and someone else was responsible for that activity.
Schedules.
Okay.
I mean, that's part of the family meeting, is not just responsibilities, like determining what that person's role is. And trust me, you're preparing your kid for life. I mean, because he's going to have a she's going to have a responsibility at some point to somebody else called an employer, right? That they're going to have to follow a schedule. So utilize this time to start preparing them for that in the home, right? So that when they leave home and they leave childhood and enter adulthood, they're ready, because they've already done that. We learned how to do that during COVID-19, how to come together as a family, come up with a plan of action, having everybody have their specific part in this plan of action, and then working on a schedule, right? Because one of the other things that I was talking to a colleague about was just, they were saying, how do you get your private time? Like, the kids just don't go away, And I said, again, schedule. I go, make a corner. I go, preferably a room. But if you don't have enough room, if you live in a 1-room space with 10 kids, pick a corner and let everybody know that that's your individual corner. Nobody can go in that corner. That when a person's in there, that's their time. If it doesn't say your time on the schedule, that's not your time. Everybody gets that moment where nobody bothers them. They get in their space, and have the family agree on it, because the kid that's going to bother that person is going to want to have a quiet time in that space themselves. You get what I'm saying? And so you allow that conversation to happen so that everybody gets their moment. So if mama's over there, whatever you can wait, and it could be a 15-minute time by yourself.
Okay.
Everybody knows that person, if they're in there, they get 15 minutes. You even know what the time is. It's on a schedule someplace.
Okay, so this is a physical schedule and it's posted. It's
Right.
You're saying mentally.
No. I mean, it's like basically what will save us all is some modicum of structure. And we've been lazy to do that because we really haven't had to, because other people have been doing that for us. The daycare, the school system, my job, they've all been giving me a schedule. Now I kind of have to come up with one, since I'm stuck with these people who I realized I didn't know as well as I thought I did.
You had 'em.
I'm like, who are you? Right. Like, who are you? But so I think that kind of structure will help everybody, because it gives them some sense of stability in all this chaos. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so, and the thing about the behavior that you were saying earlier is that you have to, you also have to understand that what it's forcing us to do is realize how unintentional we are in our actions. Which the word react means. It doesn't mean reaction. When you react to something, it means that you haven't thought about how you're going to respond to it. You just respond. Whatever comes out is what. And so what that lets us know is that, but I'm used to acting this way. Then you need to be more intentional about your behaviors, because if you become more intentional about your behaviors, then you'll start seeing more of the outcomes you want. Right now, you're letting an outside circumstance control your entire life, because you respond to it, not how you feel is the best response for you or even for the situation, but you react to what you think to whatever emotion that circumstance triggered, and that's when it gets dangerous.
Okay, I know you're running out of time. You gotta go. We've got to get back, and we're gonna have this discussion. But is the Indiana Parent Institute available on an emergency basis, where it's like, okay, I need to call. I need some help right now. You need to talk me down off this wall. I'm standing on this counter. I got this kid over here that's having a tantrum. Let's talk about it.
Definitely. Like I said, this is a crazy time, and I'm just gonna be 100% transparent here. This is a crazy time, and that's why I said at the beginning of of our time together that if it's flipping you out and you're having major issue, please do not try and figure this out by yourself. I mean, I'm a professional. I've been trained in a lot of this stuff. I have a lot of connections. It's still crazy for me. So please reach out. I cannot tell you how many people I call and go, okay, I'm having this. Okay, I'll give you a great example. Loss is interesting, right? You have to mourn.
Right.
All of us have lost something, have we not? We've lost our regular way of living. Every last human being on the planet has lost their regular way of being. So guess what? You're going to go through this process called mourning. Okay?
We're not even talking about deceased mourning.
Right. You have mourning is just what you go through when you lose something, whether it's a person, a job, a way of life, an identity, whatever, your freedom, whatever. You go through a mourning period. So a colleague of mine was talking about how she was going through depression and she didn't know why she was depressed. And I'm like, honey, you're going through it's a process. I said, you're in the process of loss. So you are going to get depressed. It doesn't mean something's wrong with you. It just means you've hit that part. I had 2 days of it where I was just like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't deal with this. This sucks. I hate life. I went through that whole thing. And then I realized, and then about, as it got really deep, the next day I woke up and I was fine. And that's when I realized, oh, I'm going through mourning. Right. And so I'm seeing more and more people hitting the depression phase on Facebook, but no one's letting them know that it's part of a process. It will go away. It absolutely does go away. It won't go away if you focus on it.
Right.
But if it will go away if you just allow it to ride itself out and keep looking for things that you can focus your attention on that give you more pleasure, more hope. I mean, entertainment, whatever, eventually it goes away, but if you focus on it, it will not go away. And that's when it gets dangerous. But it is part of the process. Don't be surprised when you go through it. I'm not going to even say when you go through it. So because of those components, I think necessary as you're going through this mourning phase, and many of us have never been walked through it to understand each part of it that we're going to go through and how it emotionally or even physically impacts us, to reach out and ask questions like, why am I eating like a pig now?
Okay, okay.
I went through the eating like a pig phase too, and I'm like going, I can't gain weight. But you go through, and so it's a matter of having somebody to reach out to and let them know what you're going through, and then having them encourage you that, no, this is all good, keep going, you're going to get over this. I'm here if you need that encouragement, that you can find things. If you need to find something, reach out to Indiana Parenting Institute. Our number is 219-886-1111. Again, that is 219-886-1111, or you can go on Facebook under Indiana Parenting Institute. I think our URL for Facebook is Great Parenting Happens Here. And we have a contact us button. You can do that and send us an email message so that we can get answers to you. I mean, I want you to know that there's a place here that can get answers to you. Now, our answer may be to get you to somebody else to ask the question, but we'll even help you with the question, because a lot of times it's not that people will feel like their questions aren't getting answered, and it's because they don't know how to ask the question in the correct way. Okay. I've learned that. One of the things I've learned about going downstate, because I go downstate a lot, is that if you want the right answer, you have to know how to ask the right question.
Right.
Okay. So and that's one of the things that we help parents out with too, to make sure that they get the answers that they're looking for based upon the way that they ask the question that they want to ask. But anywho, I definitely want folks to know that we are here. Either, like I said, you can email us, ipi@indianaparentinginstitute.org. You can go on Facebook, click on Contact Us, and it'll send you to a form that you fill that out with your question, or you can call us 219-886-1111. Even the stuff that we discussed today, Nat, I am there, not I, but the office, I am on some points, but our staff is there to ensure that we can help you come up with how to put together a family meeting, how to set up that space, how to get the schedule going, and those kind of things. And just other questions like, my kid did this the other day, what do I do? And those kind of things. That there is some place to call to at least get a 5-minute break and get something that infuses you with hope and because it's giving you options that you didn't know that you had. So it's that extra fuel you need to keep trying, right? Because I've given you an idea you didn't have before.
It's absolutely great. I really appreciate it, because you don't think that as things leave or move, that as a mourning period, and I really appreciate you for that. But the project, you and I, project, because we still have to deal with the adults here. We dealt a little bit with the children and how to do that, because people are having difficulties during these times. You got to come back. We got to have that discussion.
I know.
We got to get some outlines, and we got to get people some help.
The one thing
on that poverty ladder is, people who are reacting out to everything, and they're losing, they're depressed, and all of this thing. So we got to work on that.
There's so much. One of the things that I want to do is I serve on the governor's workforce cabinet downstate, and I'll send Nat text sometimes, and I'll talk with her about some of the things that I think that our community really needs to know, so that we can benefit from the stuff that is available to us. And part of it is just an understanding. I basically had to learn a new language so that I could understand how economies operate and how to benefit from the resources that are available, but also how to ask for what it is that you actually need. We don't know. And so I want to get on your show to really have that conversation, to help empower our populace, our community, about how to do that, because it's not that we can't have it, we just don't know how to ask for it. Thank you. I love hanging with you.
Yeah, I really do. And we want to thank everyone for tuning in to WLTH AM 1370, 92.7 FM, to Spotlight on Business, sponsored by NIPSCO. And we thank them for recognizing and striving to make communities stronger and more sustainable. Because that's what we have to do.
Right, exactly.
We have to do that.
And let me throw that number out one more time. It's 219-886-1111. Again, Indiana Parenting Institute, 219 886-1111.
All righty. Well, I'm gonna let you get out of here.
Thank you, ma'am.
Definitely, we're working on it, okay?
Seriously.
Alrighty.
Okay.
And with that, I'm gonna turn everyone back over to automation. Want to remind you that coming up today, afternoon news desk with Jeffrey Smith. Trinity United Church of Christ has a food giveaway today between 1 and 3 over 1276 West 19th Avenue today. Make sure you go by. And the Food Bank of Northwest Indiana, they're giving away food from 4 to 6 today, 6490 Broadway. And everyone have a great weekend. Please be safe out there and think about how you're going to go from mourning to laughter. So
Exactly.
everyone have a great day. Janae, thank you so
Thanks,
much
sweetie.
for stopping by.